Mystery series are naturally concerned with the truth, what it is, who knows it, and how it leads people in the directions it does. So it makes sense that this season's The Case Files of Jeweler Richard has truth as one of its major themes. But it's far less concerned with the surface mysteries that Richard has to solve. Telling the story through the eyes of his inexperienced but good-natured assistant, Seigi, Jeweler Richard usually has the actual investigation of the gems, like where they came from and what happened to them, done off-screen, while Seigi follows the hints from Richard's intuition and observation to uncover the truth about the people whose lives got tangled up in these gems. The state and history of the gem might be what they were hired to find, but the circumstances of the people who owned, gifted, stole, or sold it? That's the more important thing, says the series, because that leads to the reason they're here in the first place. The series has a Jewel of the Week plot with somewhat of a formula, though recent episodes have been shaking it up. Someone comes in with a gem that they want appraised or wants to purchase a specific gem, and Richard and Seigi hear their story out. Richard gets to learning about the gem, but spots that this is more important than just a transaction, and he and Seigi slowly get out the real story behind it. Nothing is ever just what it looks like at first, and no matter how important the gem may or may not be to a person, it's the person's feelings and how their life story got to that point that the duo is really concerned with. Most of these patrons have truth and lies front of mind, in fact, and sometimes in multiple ways. A nurse steals a gem from a patient and claims that it was a gift, knowing the patient's dementia will make the truth unclear. A woman's fiancé leaves her for someone else and jumps to proposing right away, so she starts wondering if she was ever good enough. A man doesn't tell his child why he's gotten rid of the family cat because he doesn't think the boy will understand, so he buys him a priceless gem, but their relationship is strained until Richard gets him to tell the truth and promise he'll bring the cat back when it's safe to do so. One of the biggest examples is Mommy in episode 2. She brings in a ruby she got from her fiancé to be appraised, and Richard immediately suspects her intentions because she's basing whether to go through with the marriage on whether or not the guy was lying about how much the ruby was worth. Things get more complicated when it turns out she's been lying about her last name and her fiancé shows up, thinking she's being secretive because she's having an affair. But the big twist is that Mommy is a lesbian who was forced back into the closet when social and family pressure got unbearable. She still loves her old girlfriend and had been using her last name. And she got the ruby appraised, deciding that she'd marry the guy she was with if he had been lying to her. A mutual loveless marriage was better, she decided, than leading someone on who truly loved her. When he finds out, he's horrified because he did love her, and he blames himself for the depressive spiral she's gone through living a lie. Seigi stands in contrast with the rest of the cast because he doesn't hide anything. Richard hires him because Seigi is completely honest and cares about others' well-being, but he also chastises Seigi on more than one occasion for being too honest. Seigi's life to this point has been in a bubble where he's mainly interacted with people who reflect himself. While he sympathizes with his grandmother's story of having been poor and desperate, he hasn't lived that life. He's easily tricked by people he trusts, and the circumstances of patrons often throw him. He tends to say things that he thinks are nice but come out offensive. And whether or not you take the hints that he's bi and doesn't realize it yet as sincere or bait, it starts to seem like he doesn't fully understand himself, let alone the people he's trying to help. But Richard still believes in the power of that sincerity and wants to give him a chance. This is in pretty sharp contrast with what we know about Richard himself, which the show has been slowly revealing. His encyclopedic knowledge of gems and ability to trace a theft or spot a forgery comes from a past where he himself was a con artist, and since turning his life around, he's used those skills to catch other people doing the same thing. Even now that Richard is on the up and up, he's not above lying or tricking people to spare their feelings or to expose a criminal. And he's still got some enemies in the field who claim he's bad news, enough that he seems to believe it himself. While Richard may not be entirely honest, even if it's for a good cause, he sees value in honesty and encourages Seigi to stay the way he is, except maybe take a sensitivity training module or two. And that brings us to the probable reason why he took Seigi in. A big part of it is the case that brought them together in the first place. Richard identifies with Seigi's late grandmother, a former criminal who wanted to atone and encouraged Seigi when his peers mocked him for being too much of a good kid. He may even have known the truth, that Miyashita didn't want the ring back before he took Seigi to return it. After all, the important thing wasn't to say what was done, but to give Seigi the closure his grandmother needed but never got. So while The Case Files of Jeweler Richard isn't your average mystery series, its unique approach is good for a drama. The actual case solving takes a back seat, while the personal issues and emotions of both the main cast and the one-episode characters are what the show really cares about. And that focus on the theme of truth, lies, and how they affect people ties deeply to the mystery setup and the focus on gems. This is Secret Identity Studio, and is it just me, or are the CGI gems kind of mesmerizing? This show has given me so many emotions.